In this Nenio build guide, I'm going to break down the best attributes, skills, feats, spells, mythic path, and equipment you should take for Nenio to deal effective ranged and AoE damage. With this companion, we'll go for a pure and straightforward Scroll Savant Wizard build. If you're looking for a DPS build that employs crowd control techniques to confuse enemies, followed by powerful spells to kill them, then this Nenio build guide is for you. A big shout out to Epic Games for sponsoring this video. If you guys are playing Wrath of the Righteous this week or getting it next week from the Epic Store, make sure you use our creator code and our link in the description to help support the channel. Nenio's build focuses on becoming an expert in two schools of magic, specifically Illusion and Evocation. With Illusion Spells, Nenio is able to disorient enemies, forcing them to roll for saving throws to negate or reduce the harmful effects they receive. With Evocation Spells, she's able to utilize both ranged touch attack or ray spells as well as AoE spells. We'll be diversifying our spell list, which is the reason why we won't be focusing on just one of these, to effectively target multiple enemy types. Also remember that wizards need to prepare spells in their spellbooks prior to taking a rest so they can cast them afterward. You can also control the number of times you're able to cast a spell by adding multiple versions of it in your spell slots without any penalty. By the time you meet Nenio at level 3, she automatically has the following feats, proficiencies, and abilities. Scholar Arcane adds Use Magic Device and Knowledge Arcana to her list of skills. Cantrips, able to unlimitedly cast several level 0 spells without the need to prepare them beforehand. This is useful when you're about to kill an enemy with a very low HP, so you don't have to waste your prepared spells and scrolls. Wizard Proficiencies increases the number of weapons you're proficient with, such as heavy and light crossbows. Detect Magic detects magic in the area such as the presence of magical traps. You won't be able to see invisible enemies, but you'll know that they're there. With this, you're also able to identify the school of magic a spell belongs to, which is useful in dialogue. Opposition schools Abjuration and Necromancy sacrifices knowledge gained in relation to Abjuration and Necromancy spells to focus on illusion spells. If you intend to prepare spells under these schools of magic, you'll end up using 2 slots for a single spell, which is costly. Spell Focus Illusion improves the difficulty class of illusion spells by 1. As a result, they are tougher to repel. The target must succeed in their saving throws to fully negate or reduce the effects depending on the spell's description. Scroll Focus raises the bonus on Use Magic Device checks to a default of 10 to successfully cast spells from scrolls like Cure Wounds. Arcane Bond Object allows you to restore and cast a used up spell one more time. Scribe Scrolls lets you craft scrolls while resting. Blinding Ray ability lets you cast Blinding Ray to blind or dazzle enemies. You can keep using this ability several times per day depending on your intelligence modifier. Spell Penetration enhances the chances of breaking through a target's spell resistance by accounting for the bonuses you receive when you roll for caster level checks. Starting at level 4 and every 4 levels after that, you'll be able to add 1 point to any of your attributes. With Nenio, you'll only want to improve 2 attributes to improve the effectiveness of your spells, as well as improve your defenses. At levels 4 and 8, you'll want to add 2 points to Intelligence. Intelligence is the wizard spellcasting ability which allows Nenio to learn and cast numerous spells. Additionally, its respective modifier determines the spell difficulty class. To increase your intelligence by 2, you'll need to wear Draven's Hat. In total, you should have 24 intelligence with a +7 modifier. The second attribute is Dexterity, which you'll have to increase by a total of 3 points at level 12, 16, and 20. This boosts your armor class, which makes it difficult for enemies to hit you. It also influences the attack rolls of your ray spells or those that are ranged touch attack, meaning you have a better chance of hitting enemies if your dexterity is high. You ought to have 20 Dexterity with a +5 modifier. When it comes to Nenio's skills, you want to focus on Knowledge Arcana, Knowledge World, Mobility, and Use Magic Device. Knowledge Arcana lets you learn spells from scrolls by permanently adding them to your spell list. Additionally, it helps you craft scrolls and to identify magical items without the need to go to merchants. Knowledge World, on the other hand, improves your chances of successfully cooking meals while camping to buff the party. It also provides you with creature information so you'll know their strengths, weaknesses, and immunities. Next, Mobility improves your ability to move past enemies without getting hit by attacks of opportunity. This is very important for your build considering how low your defenses are, especially at the beginning of the game. Lastly, you'll want to raise the rank of Use Magic Device to cast scroll spells. This is true for other schools of magic you haven't specialized in, such as divine spells to heal yourself or the party if needed. Otherwise, reaching ranks 3 to 6 should be sufficient. At levels 5 to 20, you'll be able to choose 8 feats for Nenio with 1 feat at every other level. You'll focus on dealing ray spells, AoE spells, and as well as mind affecting and concealment spells. Starting at level 5, you ought to take these important feats in the following order. Point Blank Shot and Precise Shot. Each increases your attack roll by 1 while removing the -4 penalty you get from attack rolls as a result of hitting enemies engaged in melee combat. Both feats are essential in making sure that ray spells you cast won't regularly miss. Spell Focus Evocation increases your spell's DC by 1. Since you're going to cast AoE evocation spells, you want them to fail at their saving throw rolls in order to receive the full negative effects of these spells. Improved Initiative allows you to gain the upper hand in combat by raising the chances of attacking first. The faster you get rid of your enemies, the better, since your armor class isn't that high. Greater Spell Focus Evocation adds another +1 bonus which stacks with Spell Focus to your Evocation spells DC. Greater Spell Penetration. Receive a +2 caster level check bonus to overcome your target's spell resistance. This feat is primarily useful for ray spells to successfully harm enemies. Dodge. Gain a +1 dodge bonus which is added to your armor class. Improved Critical Ray. Doubles the threat range for your ray spells in order to get closer to pulling off critical hits. For the purposes of this feat, ray spells are treated as ranged weapons. At level 15 and 20 as a wizard, you gain 2 bonus feats which don't stack with regular feats. These are extra feats whose prerequisites you still have to fulfill, unlike the monk's bonus feats. You can opt to get these in any order. Combat Casting. Gains a concentration check bonus when you're being threatened by enemies as you're casting spells. This is very important in cases when you're cornered so that you're able to hit them with your spells. Metamagic Empower Spell. Enhances the power of your ray spells. The Metamagic feat allows you to increase their level by 2, for example, a level 4 Scorching Ray dealing 1.5 times fire damage than its original level 2 version. The higher your spell level is, the more powerful it becomes. Nenio's build focuses on using ray spells like Scorching Ray together with AoE spells such as Fireball. It's important to choose the spells that force your targets into rolling for different saving throws to take advantage of their weaknesses and to improve your chances of fully damaging them. Lastly, other spells also employ crowd control to make it easier for the party to maneuver in combat. For ray spells, which you'll both empower with Metamagic, you'll want to get Scorching Ray and Hellfire Ray. Scorching Ray blasts your enemies with a maximum of 3 rays at level 11. Each ray deals 4 to 24 fire damage. Meanwhile, Hellfire Ray is an upgraded version of Scorching Ray since you're able to inflict a maximum of 15 to 90 fire and unholy power damage for 3 rays per damage type. As such, you're still able to decently harm your target even if they have fire resistance. You can empower other spells, of course, but it's essential to include these 2 in the list to be able to obliterate your target in a single turn. To do this, simply go to Nenio's Spellbook tab and click Metamagic at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Add a spell in the middle square of the big circle by double-clicking on the icon or by dragging it. Click the sword icon on the top of this and then select Right Spell at the bottom. Your newly empowered spell should be found under its new level. Remember that you still get to keep a copy of the original in the same level. Spells with circles on top of their names can be empowered. Another good single target spell to take is Magic Missile. It works like Scorching Ray, except that it hits the target without the need to make an attack roll. However, if the enemy's spell resistance is high or they're immune to Magic Missile, it'll not do anything effective. This becomes potent at level 9 when you're able to hit them with 5 missiles. For AoE spells where targets have to successfully roll their Fortitude and Reflex saving throws, it's good to consider taking the following. Burning Arc deals multiple fire damage against enemies adjacent to each other. Fireball and Lightning Bolt deal massive fire and electricity damage respectively. Sirocco inflicts fire damage while knocking enemies prone. Afterward, they're either fatigued or exhausted, which penalizes their ability scores. Shout Greater inflicts sonic damage while stunning enemies for 1 round. Sunburst blind enemies and inflict them with 6 to 36 damage. This is very effective against undead because you're able to deal greater damage to them. Icy Prison Mass trap or paralyze enemies while inflicting cold damage per round. Scrolls are weaker because they use minimum modifiers which don't have as much impact as compared to spells you prepare. For the Scroll's counterpart of empowered spells like Scorching Ray, you won't be reaping the added damage from the Metamagic feat, but you gain 2 distinct advantages. At level 10, you automatically gain the Scroll Mastery bonus feat. This lets you add your caster level to determine the damage when casting from a scroll as opposed to the item's low caster level. Take Fireball, for example. If you run out of slots for this spell, you can use a Scroll of Fireball to deal the same amount of maximum damage, which is 10d6. Without this feat, you would have dealt 5d6 fire damage since 5 is the scroll's caster level. Let's use the Fireball spell again, but this time for Scroll Specialization, which is another bonus feat that you automatically get at level 5. This states that your Intelligence modifier will be used for your spell DC instead of the scroll's minimum modifier, which is equal to the spell's level divided by 2 rounded down. Spell DC will then be calculated as follows. Spell DC equals 10 plus spell's level plus Nenio's Intelligence modifier plus additional modifiers. For the Scroll of Fireball, its default DC is 14. With Scroll Specialization, it's boosted to 22 because Nenio's plus 7 Intelligence modifier in place of the Scroll's plus 1 modifier, as well as her plus 2 DC bonus from Spell Focus Evocation and Greater Spell Focus Evocation. This is the same DC as if you were to cast Fireball from your prepared spells. As such, your targets will have a much harder time reducing Fireball's damage by half. Due to your limited spell slots, you want to make sure that you have a lot of other scrolls, particularly for spells that aren't empowered, to be able to deal the same amount of damage you normally would. What you can also do is increase the number of prepared empowered spells while saving the rest for scrolls, since you have the proficiency to craft these anyway. Non-damage spells are made up of armor class buffs together with illusion spells, which are effective at crowd control to disorient enemies. They'll need to successfully roll for will saving throws to lessen their impact. Here are some spell suggestions, but feel free to add more. Mage Armor. Gains +4 armor bonus to armor class. Always cast this on yourself before using other spells. Mirror Image. Confuses enemies into attacking another version of you. What happens is you're surrounded by doppelgangers, so they'll tend to hit those instead of you. Blur. Grants you or an ally partial concealment, which makes enemies miss 20% of their hits. Displacement. Grants you or an ally total concealment, which makes enemies miss 50% of their hits. Greater Invisibility. Turns an ally invisible. Phantasmal Killer. Terrorizes a target by conjuring up the most horrific creature possible. They must succeed will and fortitude saving throws to live. Phantasmal Web. Trap enemies who believe that they're engulfed in webs. Weird. An upgraded version of Phantasmal Killer that terrorizes a group of enemies instead. You can pick 10 Mythic abilities and feats in any order to make Nenio a force to be reckoned with in combat. For Mythic abilities, you should acquire the following. Abundant Casting, Improved and Greater Abundant Casting. Increases the number of spells you're able to use. Archmage Armor. Provides you with additional armor class bonus after casting the Mage Armor spell on yourself. Elemental Barrage. Deal extra divine damage against a marked enemy after dealing different types of spell damage in the next 3 rounds. For Mythic feats, you're going to want ones that enhance your spell DC, caster level, and checks, and critical multiplier, specifically Spell Focus Mythic, Illusion, School Mastery Evocation, Spell Penetration Mythic, and Improved Critical Mythic. It's also good to take Sorceress Reflexes, as this allows you to cast 2 spells in one turn after rolling for initiative, since the first one is treated as a swift action. Since Nenio is going to use spells and scrolls, it's not mandatory to equip a weapon, but if you feel the urge, then a crossbow would suffice, particularly early during encounters. For her clothing, you can switch between the Silver Robe and Shirt of Blazing Fighter. The Silver Robe provides you with a saving throw bonus against fear, whereas the Shirt of Blazing Fighter grants you fire resistance. For Nenio's accessories, make sure to wear Draven's hat and Belt of Physical Form +2 to increase intelligence, dexterity, and constitution scores. Constitution increases your max HP. It's also important to wear Cloak of Resistance +2, Ring of Protection +3, and Amulet of Natural Armor +3 to boost your defenses. Lastly, don't wear the Bracers of Armor +5 because armor bonus won't stack with your Mage Armor spell and Archmage Armor mythic ability. You'll be able to gain higher armor class with this duo as compared to the Bracers. Final thoughts. Nenio has an interesting Scroll Savant Wizard Archetype, which seems confusing at first due to the high volume of spells to choose from. Because of this, I've decided to focus on Evocation and Illusion Spells to specialize in. Since your spell slots are limited, especially at earlier levels, remember to cast Ray Cantrips such as Ray of Frost, Acid Splash, and Jolt to finish off enemies with low HP. Alternatively, you can use a Crossbow so that you're not hampered by their spell resistance. Lastly, take advantage of the Invisibility Field Ability, which you receive at level 8. This acts like Greater Invisibility in that you can continue to be imperceptible even when you attack. And remember to use our content creator code Fextralife on the Epic Game Store if you get the game there and help support the channel. Stay tuned for more companion build guides, and be sure to check out our Twitch channel or the Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous official wiki if you have questions about the game. What did you think of the guide? What companion would you like to see next? Let us know in the comments below.